and welcome. I'm going to give you a presentation today to introduce myself a little bit and talk about why I have such passion for video game development and for teaching. Who doesn't love to play video games, right? I mean, especially here in sunny Southern California, it's kind of one of the things that people would do. That's surprising considering there's so many choices to be outside, but yet nearly everybody in California plays video games, is around video games, and it's what people talk about. In my department, I teach the development of video games, and I have passionate students that I long to encourage and help develop to become part of the design and game industry, to develop their own games for future use. So, who loves to play video games? Well, I know I do. I've been playing video games since I was a little kid. I can remember racing home from school and wanting to jump on Super Mario Brothers. Legend of Zelda, it spurred imagination and dreams of grandeur, and I could go on, but I have a million favorites. Thing about that is, I'm not alone. If you love video games, you aren't either. Just in the United States, there's 155 million people that play video games. 42% of our population plays so regularly that they consider themselves gamers. Every household, there are gamers, and there is roughly $22 billion spent on video games in 2015, making it bigger than movies and music combined in the United States. This is based on the Entertainment Software Association facts. When I talk about what I do, I don't talk about myself as being a programming professor or a video game professor. I'm Tracy Kocher, professor of makers, because I believe that makers is what it's about. Being able to create something. People who participate, they're players. There's nothing wrong with players, but players follow other people's paths. Players do what was prescribed to them to do. Players press buttons. Players play with the joystick. And players enjoy the adventures that are created for them by somebody else. Makers create their own. I'm a professor of makers because I have a passion in teaching how to be a maker. And makers are successful and know how to use tools and make adventures and design their own worlds. I included this quote from Mark Zuckerberg because he's a very successful maker in his own right. Having founded and created Facebook, even back when he was a little kid, he dreamed of the same stuff I did. And the games were terrible by any objective measure of the game. But that didn't stop him. And that shouldn't stop anyone who's in game development. Start off small, start off bad. Start off with something, but start. The hardest part to encouraging somebody to be a game development, to get through the degree, the program, get into the industry and start working, is to find a place to get started and to find their niche. I was lucky enough to participate in a Blizzard event on release of one of their games. At that time, I was able to interview the over 100 game developers that were present at the event and record their advice. I took their advice and I put it all together and I found some recurring themes and I decided to return those themes back to you to show that their passion, my passion, and the passion for game development are one and the same. Number one, and this was said by most Blizzard employees, play a lot of games. If you're passionate about game development, you should be playing a lot of games and not just the ones that you like. I get a lot of students that come in and they just want to play the one game that's their favorite and that's it. But I tell them, go play Barbie's Horse Adventure or go play the games that you think you would never be seen doing. Because when you play games that even you don't like, you should always be thinking critically about what you don't like about them as well as what you do like. And also how you would make them. Comes back to that maker's thing again. If you look at games with the perspective of a maker, rather than the perspective of a player, you start to see them in a new appreciation about how you could interact with them, how you could change them, how you could improve them, and how you could make your own game based on this same idea. The second thing is dedication. To work in the game industry, it's not easy to get a job. It's not, even here in California where nearly 40% of game development is done. It's still difficult to get a job, but it's not impossible. The one key thing that is required is that you are dedicated. Be persistent and don't give up. I'm sending you this presentation today because I have kind of a dream of continuing to teach in other parts of this world rather than the place where I am now. And so I'm hoping that you see that my dedication and persistence is what is giving you this information right now. But I tell my students this all the time. If you want something, you have to work for it. Nothing will be provided. Some of the students at my school take careers in medical fields, almost guaranteed a job when they're done. But this is a kind of a job, and this is a kind of area that you have to keep working on. Not just take the classes and you get the degree. You have to be developing outside. You have to be persistent. And that brings me to number 3. Make something and finish something. Finish being far more important than even making something. I have a lot of students who have made several games. Oh, I just have to do these few things to it, and it never comes back again. Ideas are everywhere. Unfinished games are everywhere. But to finish something shows a true dedication and persistence. Even making add-ons or working with mods or using some of the game development tools like I teach in my classes, Game Maker, Stencil, Game Salad, the Unreal Engine, Games Factory, Unity, all of which are things that I've used for projects. And this link is a resource that I use for my students to show them how many other tools that there are. Be the best. That's really hard with so many people wanting to do this. Number 4 says be the best. Pick an area and focus on it. I do a couple of classes where I teach each of the areas and show them their responsibilities and the jobs that can be had there and introduce some of the tools that are available in all areas. My particular focus is on programming because I'm also a professor of computer science. And so I do the computer science software development as well as game development courses at Chaffey College. Be willing to learn. You know, right now, whatever the language is, who knows if a year from now, 2 years from now, there'll be something else that's just as important. Back when I was first learning this stuff, C++ was about the only thing you needed to know. Java, I just looked at a study that says that Java's used in the world far more than C++. And then now Python's up and coming. And there's so many languages and there's so many tools. And so it doesn't matter that you're an expert in one particular software or language, but that you have a willingness to learn. Work together as a team. All of my courses are team-based courses where the grades are based on the team producing a project. I do that because I worked with a company, an independent game development company, helping them to build teams for the games that they're working on. And in every occasion, they said what's more important is not skills, but the ability to work together because we have limited budget, limited time frame, and we need people to work together. They would conduct interviews where they would give a group of people a project to work on to finish briefly. And some of those that were applying for the positions would hide in a corner so as not to share their work so they could stand out as being the best. And granted, they had a lot of skills. The ones that said, I'm not sure what to do, hey, let's work together, and the ones that were collaborative and communicative, they're the ones that got jobs. I share that with my students all the time because it's really important to be able to work together as a team. Number 6, most important advice from 100 developers at Blizzard. And number 7 is to read. Not just the textbooks, not just the assignments I give them, but Gama Sutra and all the websites. Be part of the news, know what's going on, understand the issues that are facing the game industry. And write. It's amazing how few people actually can't write, or at least in something that I would consider an academic paper, or able to communicate well with others. Communication is a tool that will serve you well. One of the ways you can practice writing, I tell my students too, is to write reviews of games and send them in and participate in forums and communities of your favorite games, as long as you're able to express your thoughts so that others can understand. Number 9 is start small. Make your own little bitty games. Little bitty games. Just silly things. Space shooters, first-person shooters, side scrollers. Things that are easy to make, easy to get into, maybe end quick. But it's that completion one going back to it. Another great place to start is quality assurance. practicing now. Every time you play a game, you find and document the errors and write reproducible steps to get them. This is another way to be a maker, even when you're a player. Number 10, have a passion for the industry, and I absolutely do. I have passion for everything I do because I don't understand why you would even try to do something if you don't do it 110%. I'm full with energy and excitement, and I say to myself all the time, I love my job. I have my dream job, I do. I used to work in healthcare, and I used to do various things, but I was lucky enough to find myself as a professor part-time, and the day I did it, I realized this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my working days, is teach. And then, lucky enough, I was able to develop the curriculum in my other passion, which is video games, and so now coming to work is just enjoyable, and it's something I always wanna do. I'm a maker, and I'm a professor of makers. I help to create and inspire people to create the video games of the next decade and beyond. Let me tell you about a little bit of things that we've done here. I am the advisor of the Computer Science Club. I am the advisor of the Game Developers Club, and my Chaffey College students have done great things since I've been here. My Computer Science Club, we attended a programming festival 3 years in a row. The first year we got 4th place, and the last 2 years we've got 1st place because they're driven and they're passionate, and that's my doing, hopefully, at least a little bit, because I push them to challenge themselves, to spend a Saturday, Sunday doing programming problems instead of something else. We attended a Skills USA competition. Our region is Region 6, which is California. I sent 4 students. They took 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. The 1st place went on to the state championships and in San Diego and got 1st place. He then went on to the national championships in Nashville, Tennessee, and got 3rd place. So these are some dedicated students that I hopefully inspire to do this. We're attending Skills USA for the 2nd time this year, and we'll see if we get quite as much of a sweep. The competition is in February. Last year was only our 1st year in attendance. Another programming competition, the ACM competition, Associated Computing Machinery. We've been to 3 competitions so far. It's an overwhelming competition, hundreds of teams from top schools like USC, UCLA, Caltech. When we first went, we weren't able to do very well, but each time we've gotten better and better. And this last year, the competition took place on November 12th, and my students placed 5th among all community colleges and 35th overall out of 119. So that's not too bad considering they're only 2-year students going up against 4-year students. My students in the Computer Science Club initiate and work on their own projects that I advise and oversee, and I help them with budget and items that they might need. So they've worked on things like different systems, robotics, and virtual reality games. My Game Developers Club, which is a lot of the same students, also do projects like Games for Charity. They host game parties for fundraisers, and the fundraisers are used for things like a group home at Christmas time. They bought a bunch of Christmas things, and they're doing various things in the community like that too. They're also always making projects, even itty-bitty ones, of all different genres, using different tools. They give each other tutorials, and we look at what's going on in the industry, and we always have a report out about the news. About me though. I'm finished with my coursework for the dissertation, and I completed my comprehensive examinations, and I've been working on my dissertation. I'm working now in the 3rd chapter. I have a committee, and my topic that I have been studying and finding research in is gameplay and preferences in the United States for adults. I have found that there's a lot of research primarily on children or of younger age groups, as if the older age groups should be disregarded. When you look at research that already exists, there are decades of research showing males and females that they have different preferences, that males spend more time and more money on video games. Which is odd because the female population is growing. And according to the Entertainment Association, there is quite a large female population, even larger than the younger adult males. So why do males still spend more money? Because they do. So that's kind of where I'm going. Well, a lot of research that I've read has dealt with things like flow and user gratification as being the reasons why people continue to play games or spend money on the games that they play. So using a couple different survey instruments, I'm collecting data on user engagement and player motivational categories to see which of these categories are the most tied to intent to purchase. I'm going to compare that by males and females and also by generalized age groups. So I can even continue to see what older adults are most inspired to purchase games and what kind of games and what's the reasons that make them want to play. Because there is very little research right now on the aging population and how they are with playing games. I'm currently working on data collection. That's where I'm at in the dissertation. So I'm not quite done with the PhD, but I'm well on my way, and I feel like I have a good grasp of where I'm going with it. It took me a little while to kind of get everything worked out, but I should be done with this. I'm shooting for being done with it in the spring. In conclusion, I just want to say the question of do I have passion about my job, about what I do with teaching, with research, with game industry. I hope I've shown that I'm passionate in everything that I do. And I want to just end on a note by Confucius. If you choose a job you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Hope I see you soon.